a standard deviation beyond what we were doing before. But it was still family friendly.
I'm tired of being humble. I'm tired of letting people think they got a chance. The tribal chief is head and shoulders above everybody.
Hey, this is Turnbuckle King, TBK, we are here. This is Top Spring Scandal, aka KDH. We're going to talk about times when Vince McMahon documentary saw WWE live, and what we mean by that, we're talking about Vince McMahon. The lies told in Vince McMahon documentary. Get the likes as you come to the locker room, and as usual, let's entertain laundry. There will be 3 separate cases where I noticed, where I checked out the Vince McMahon documentary that was on Netflix. I believe it is at #1 on Netflix of top things to watch out of the top 10, but it's a couple things that seem kind of shady. So we're gonna go over the times when the documentary lied. First off, we'll talk about when Vince McMahon said it was being a family-friendly product. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything like that, but despite him saying it at a particular time with the wrestling peak, wrestling boom as they called it in the 90s, we saw stuff like this. We saw, lots of stuff where the wrestlers was being attacked and harmed, where we saw color, as they call in the wrestling business. We saw matches of this sort of this type of match with also Undertaker, if you guys remember that, those particular things. So I don't remember it being so much a family-friendly product, so I call cap on that one. And Vince McMahon, he said that in the part documentary himself, you guys remember.
A standard deviation beyond what we were doing before. But it was still family friendly.
So it was not family-friendly. So that's the first lie he told. And we know it was also, of course, related storylines and other derogatory things. You guys figure out the puzzle. You guys know what I mean by that. Now, the second lie that was told in the documentary, he said that when him and his wife Linda had met. Now, remember when he talked about that, he said in the documentary that Vince McMahon was 16 years old when he met Linda, and Linda was only 13. He said his mother introduced them to each other. Now, he said that during the documentary, and that's crazy. I remember that part of the documentary, and it was very interesting for him to say that. If I'm not mistaken, that's what he said. So we'll see what Vince McMahon, when he said that, what did he mean by that? That definitely seemed kind of strange when he said that. It was strange. I remember when he said those words, actually.
Introduced me to Linda, my wife. I think I was 16.
So he said that he was 16, but according to reports, it says right here that Vince was actually 17 years old. If you guys remember, it said while Linda and Vince were currently estranged, he was 17. It's a error, says she was really he. Vince was 17 and had met him when she was 13. So that was the second lie told in the documentary of Vince McMahon documentary, as we know on Netflix. So this was another lie that they told in this documentary. So this was crazy. And then they had another lie, if you guys remember, this third lie of course, the infamous WrestleMania 3. We've been here for years and years and years saying that the WrestleMania 3 attendance was 93,000 at the Pontiac Stadium. We heard it's one of the, at the time, the largest attendance ever for a wrestling event, any wrestling event, not just WWE. We remember that match of Andre versus Hogan, and of course Steamboat versus Randy Savage for the Intercontinental Championship. We heard that for years, but if you remember, Vince, he stated that. He said it in the documentary that we held the record for 93,000 in the building, if you guys remember that part. And that's where everybody was saying, he had himself talk about it. He had Hogan talk about it. Other WWE people talk about it. Bruce Pritchard as well, an executive for WWE. Everyone was saying that it was 93,000 in the building that night of WrestleMania 3. Everyone was saying that However, the thing about it is, it really was 78,000. That was stated by Dave Meltzer. Now, I know Dave Meltzer, people are not keen on him being the best source for wrestling, but he's been involved in wrestling business for many, many years, decades. And he's one of the biggest sources out there. Now, do he sometimes exaggerate his stories according to some? Yes, there could be truth to that. They say he exaggerates stories. He's not the best source, but at this particular point, with this particular thing with WrestleMania 3, the attendance-wise, I agree with him with the 78,000. I believe he's being honest on that when he called that. So I don't think WWE had that kind of attendance back then. They just manipulated numbers similar to what AEW does now. So for all you guys out there, you know, for WrestleMania 3, if you really thought it was 93,000, I don't believe it. There's no way.
No.
I don't think it was 93. I think Dave Meltzer had a point when he stated it was only 78,000 in the building, because we gotta remember they do not always account for the seats in all PLEs or pay-per-views back then. So we have to take account to that. That comes down to that when it comes to events or whatnot. They always try to make it seem like it's more than ever. And like I said, this was back in WrestleMania 3. I mean, it was business back in the 80s. So it was before social media, before everything of that sort. So they was known for doing that kind of stuff back in the day. And I just want to say with this documentary, overall as a documentary, I just was not pleased with this documentary. This documentary, I thought it was going to be some stuff that we didn't know, some stuff that was going to be leaked, or some stuff that would be brand new news to the wrestling fans. But it just was not the case here. I didn't see it happening. I would say 95% of the documentary, as a wrestling fan, was stuff I already knew. And then, as you can see, I counted out the 3 lies that were stated in there. In my opinion, the documentary was very, very overrated. People was raving about, saying it's 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, best documentary ever. That may be so to a brand new person who's new to wrestling and don't know the history of wrestling back in the 70s, 80s, and whatnot. But someone who's like myself that's watched wrestling for years and know a lot of history behind it, especially during the 90s, the Attitude Era, we know that this documentary brought no new information that we already did not know as wrestling fans. And we actually feel insulted to put that out there. But it's just crazy. So that's what they wanted to put out. Maybe they put it out for certain reasons. Maybe they don't want certain people to make content, whatever the case may be. But that's how it goes. And that's all I have regarding Times with Vince McMahon documentary. Saw WWE Live, the lies told in Mr. McMahon documentary. You guys let me know in the comment section in the live chat below. What do you think of this documentary, the lies? Have you watched it, not watched it? And what do you think about that documentary overall? Soon to views will pop up. You guys click the link below. Check out the content here. Other than that, though, guys, you already know what it is at this point. It is O-U-T.
Me and Chris Benoit basically all started together, pretty much. You started a little bit earlier.
WWF, yeah, for sure, yeah.
But they pushed me to the moon, and they held you guys back. And we all started at the same time. We were wrestling each other. We were getting each other over, putting each other over. And I thought we were all going to kind of come up together. And it was like, you guys stayed behind. And it was like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, we definitely had to work harder because you already said it, Kurt. You already know the answer is that you were a WWE guy.